Two Primarchs have returned in 41st Millennium. Roboute Guilliman came back first, resurrected through Eldar sorcery and Mechanicus science, and immediately made the pilgrimage to Terra. He walked into the throne room expecting to see his father. What he found broke something inside him that 10,000 years of stasis never could. Now the Lion walks the galaxy again, and sooner or later he is heading for that same throne room. But here's the thing, the Lion might have already met the Emperor, or at least a piece of him, and what happened during that encounter suggests that when the Lion finally stands before the Golden Throne, the experience could be fundamentally different from that of Guilliman, and possibly far worse. Let's start with what we know. When Guilliman entered the Imperial throne room following his resurrection and the Terran Crusade, he expected a reunion. He got something else entirely. The experience is described across the Dark Imperium trilogy, particularly in Godblight by Guy Haley, and it is one of the most disturbing passages in modern Warhammer 40k fiction. Guilliman could not even perceive the Emperor clearly. He described seeing 100 different impressions, all false, all true, racing through his mind simultaneously. He saw a pillar of light. He saw screaming souls. He saw an empty-eyed skull. He saw an impassive god. He saw an old man. He saw yesterday's savior. He could not remember what his father had looked like before, and Roboute Guilliman forgets nothing. Then the thing on the throne saw him, and it spoke. Not with one voice, but with many, layered on top of each other like a psychic avalanche. It called him my son, and 13, and Lord of Ultramar, and Savior, and Hope. Then in the same breath, without pause or distinction, it called him failure and disappointment, and liar, and thief, and betrayer, all at once. Every word true and untrue simultaneously. Eventually the voices seemed to focus, as though a great will was exerting itself, not for the final time, but nearly. The Emperor managed something approaching coherent communication. He called Guilliman his last loyal son, his pride, his greatest triumph. But Guilliman recognized even those words were conditional. They burned worse than Mortarion's poisons, because right alongside my pride came my last tool and my last hope. A final drawing in of power, a thought expelled like a dying breath. The whole exchange apparently lasted minutes from Guilliman's perspective. When he emerged from the throne room, over a day had passed in real time. He could not fully remember what happened, neither could Captain General Trajan Valoris of the Adeptus Custodes, who had been standing right there beside a Primarch and the most powerful psychic being in the galaxy. Here's what this tells us. The Emperor's mind is fractured, not in the way a human mind breaks under trauma, but fractally, like a shattered mirror where every shard still reflects something real, but no two shards show the same image. This concept goes back to the earliest Warhammer fiction. In Ian Watson's original Inquisitor novel, the Emperor's consciousness was depicted as having splintered into multiple personality aspects. Guy Haley's more recent work confirms this is still the canonical understanding. The being on the Golden Throne is not one mind speaking with contradictory impulses. It is more like dozens of minds, fragments of what was once the most powerful psychic entity in human history, all trying to communicate through the same dying flesh at the same time. Guilliman did not get a cold reception because the Emperor does not care about him. He got an incomprehensible one because the Emperor can barely hold a single coherent thought together long enough to express it. The part that called him son meant it. The part that called him betrayer meant it too. Different fragments, different truths, all bleeding into each other across 10,000 years of agony and psychic exertion. And this left Guilliman shaken to his core. He felt the Emperor had lost all pretense of humanity, that his father gave off an overwhelming sense of coldness. Guilliman felt he was greeted as a creator would greet a long-lost tool, not as a father would greet his son. The Emperor showed interest in his return, but it was the interest of a craftsman examining a weapon he thought he had lost. That realization, more than the Plague Wars, more than Mortarion's treachery, more than the rotting state of the Imperium itself, is what cracked the foundation of Guilliman's loyalty. He still serves, But he serves the Imperium now, not his father. There is a difference, and it matters. Now consider the lion's experience. In The Lion, Son of the Forest by Mike Brooks, the Primarch of the Dark Angels awakens not on some battlefield or in the depths of the rock, but in Mirror Caliban. This is a mysterious subdimension that resembles the ancient forests of his destroyed homeworld. The realm appears to be adjacent to the warp, perhaps conjured from the lion's own memories during his 10,000 years of slumber within the rock, hidden by the enigmatic watchers in the dark. The forest never seems to end, no matter how far you travel, and it is home to the same species of great beast the lion once hunted on Caliban. Almost immediately after waking with no memories, the lion encounters a wounded old king sitting by a river, fishing. The waters around this figure play a strange, haunting song. Dark shadows circle the king constantly, preventing the lion from approaching too closely. A watcher in the dark appears and warns the lion about the shadows, telling him the king is injured and waiting. And then the watcher says something critical. The king is capable of answering questions, but only if the right question is asked. Later, as the lion explores Mirror Caliban further, he enters a great hall. There he finds the same royal figure, still wounded, silent, and unmoving upon a throne. A phantom fire crackles in the hearth. Arranged around the throne sit 3 objects, a candelabra, a bloodied lance, and a chalice. This is unmistakably the Fisher King from Arthurian legend. In the original myths most famously told in Chrétien de Troyes' Perceval, the Fisher King is the guardian of the Holy Grail, a once mighty ruler who has received a grievous wound and whose realm withers and becomes a wasteland as the king's health fails. The knight Percival encounters him fishing by a river and is invited to his castle. There he sees a procession bearing a bleeding lance, a golden grail, and other sacred objects. Percival must ask the right question about these objects to heal the king and restore the land. When Percival fails to ask, staying silent out of politeness, the king remains wounded and the wasteland endures. The parallels to the emperor are deliberate and precise. A wounded king who cannot speak clearly, a realm, in this case the entire Imperium, that suffers because of his injury, sacred objects surrounding him. The candelabra almost certainly represents the Astronomicon, the psychic lighthouse that guides humanity's ships through the warp. The bloodied lance likely references the wound Horus inflicted during the siege of Terra, the blow that put the Emperor on the golden throne. The chalice could represent the promise of healing or salvation, the holy grail that might restore the king to wholeness. Some fans have speculated it connects to Sanguinius given the blood imagery, though this remains uncertain. Both times the lion encounters this figure, he fails to ask the right question. The first time by the river, the king simply ignores him while the shadows keep him at bay. The second time is far worse. The shadows around the throne rise up aggressively, the king's face shows anger and disappointment, and then the lion is violently expelled from the hall, cast back to his starship, and out of Mirror Caliban entirely. Here is what matters. This figure in Mirror Caliban is almost certainly an aspect of the Emperor. Not the full shattered consciousness sitting on the golden throne on Terra, but a fragment. A shard of that fractured psyche, manifesting in a realm adjacent to the warp in a form shaped by the lion's own mythic context. The Emperor is reaching out. He revealed himself to the lion in a way specifically tailored to the lion's Calibanite upbringing through the language of knightly quests and wounded kings and sacred relics, not through raw psychic data transfer like he used on Guilliman through myth and symbol. But the lion failed twice, and the Emperor, or at least this aspect of him, was displeased. So what happens when the lion eventually makes the journey to Terra and stands before the actual golden throne? The lion is currently operating in the dark half of the galaxy, cut off from the Astronomicon by the Great Rift. Getting to Terra means crossing that galaxy-spanning wound in reality, a journey that nearly killed the fleets Guilliman sent through. But the lion has the forest walk, his ability to step through Mirror Caliban to reach distant locations. Whether that power can carry him across the Great Rift and all the way to Terra remains to be seen. But one way or another, the story is clearly building toward this meeting. First, consider the differences between the two Primarchs and how the Emperor might respond to each. Guilliman is the statesman, the administrator, the son who built Ultramar into a model of civilization and then codified the entire Imperium's military structure after the heresy. His relationship with the Emperor was, at its core, built on duty and professional respect. He loved his father, but it was the love of a dutiful son who admired what his father built and wanted to preserve it. When the Emperor treated him as a tool, it devastated Guilliman because it confirmed his worst fear, that the love was never reciprocated, that he was always just an instrument. The lion is something else entirely. He was the first Primarch created, gene father of the First Legion, the Dark Angels. He grew up feral in the monster-haunted forests of Caliban, more beast than man for the first decade of his life, surviving alone among horrors that would have killed any normal human in minutes. Where Guilliman sought his father's approval through governance and order, the lion sought it through the hunt, through destroying the enemies of mankind with single-minded, predatory focus. The Emperor designed the lion to be a weapon, the cold and inevitable destroyer, death that walked like a man. And the lion embraced that purpose more completely than almost any other Primarch. But here is the critical factor. The lion has already interacted with a fragment of the Emperor in Mirror Caliban, and the Emperor showed him anger and disappointment. Not the scrambled, contradictory static that Guilliman received, but a directed emotional response to the lion's failure to ask the right question. This is enormously significant. It means some fragment of the Emperor is coherent enough to feel frustration. It means the Emperor wanted something specific from the lion and did not get it. And this suggests something profound about how the Emperor's fractured psyche interacts with different Primarchs. It might respond differently to each, not because it favors one over another, but because different fragments of that shattered consciousness resonate with different sons. Guilliman got the strategic fragment, the part that sees tools and assets and last chances, the warlord assigning orders to his general. The lion got the mythic fragment, the ancient wounded king who speaks in symbols and expects his knight to understand the quest without being told directly. When the lion reaches the throne room, he will almost certainly experience the same fractured cacophony that Guilliman did. The Emperor's psyche is broken regardless of who stands before it. He will hear son and first and hunter and weapon alongside failure and too late and you did not come and why did you not ask? Because all of those things are simultaneously true from different fragments of the Emperor's mind. The lion failed to reach Terra during the heresy. He failed to ask the right question in Mirror Caliban. He slept for 10,000 years while the Imperium burned and his legion fractured and his sons killed each other over secrets. Every fragment of the Emperor that holds those truths will scream them into the lion's mind at the same volume as the fragments that call him my first, my blade, my hunter. But here is the crucial difference. The lion has been primed. He has already encountered the Emperor in symbolic form. He already knows, even if he cannot fully articulate it, that his father is wounded and waiting for something specific from him. Guilliman walked into that throne room blind, with no preparation, no warning about what the Emperor had become. The lion will walk in having already failed the test, and if there is one thing that defines Lionel Johnson across 10,000 years of lore, it is that he does not accept failure. He learns, he adapts, and he strikes again. Consider how much he has already changed. In Son of the Forest, the lion admits something remarkable for a Primarch of his temperament. He says, "I failed my father, I fear I also failed my brothers. I do not wish to fail my sons." This is a level of self-reflection and humility that the old lion, the lion of the heresy era, who demanded to be War Master and could not understand why his brothers distrusted him, was simply incapable of. 10,000 years of sleep changed something fundamental in him. The forest changed him. The Fisher King changed him. He woke up not as the arrogant, socially blind destroyer he was, but as something closer to the questing knight the Emperor seems to want him to be. There's one more detail that matters enormously. When the lion fully emerged from Mirror Caliban and took up arms in the 41st millennium, he received two weapons, the sword Fealty, a massive two-handed power blade, and the Emperor's shield, an ornate defensive relic that erupts with blazing light and force energy when blocking attacks, bearing the Emperor's own iconography and golden ornamentation. The Watchers in the Dark gave it to him. Think about that. These are the same beings who inhabit Mirror Caliban alongside the Fisher King. They are giving the lion artifacts directly connected to the Emperor, while simultaneously showing him visions of the Emperor in mythic form. The Watchers were native to Caliban, they predate the Imperium, and their true nature remains one of the deepest mysteries in Warhammer 40k lore. But their actions tell a story. They woke the lion at humanity's darkest hour. They gave him weapons of the Emperor. They showed him the wounded king. They told him the king could answer questions if the right one was asked. Everything they do points in one direction, and the lion is not just another returning Primarch. He is being equipped and guided deliberately by forces that seem to serve as intermediaries between the Emperor's will and the material world. Whether the Watchers are fragments of Caliban's world spirit, manifestations of the Emperor's own psychic influence, or something else entirely remains unclear. But their purpose seems singular: prepare the lion for his audience with the wounded king. And the question the Fisher King is waiting for. In the original Arthurian legends, the question Percival must ask is deceptively simple. Who does the Grail serve? The answer heals the king and restores the wasteland. Translated into the context of the 41st millennium, the question might be something equally fundamental, not what are your orders, which is essentially what Guilliman asked and received, but something deeper. What does the Emperor actually need? Not what the ecclesiarchy thinks he needs, which is endless worship and sacrifice. Not what the Mechanicus thinks he needs, which is better maintenance of the Golden Throne's failing systems, but what he actually truly needs to either heal or to complete whatever transformation he is undergoing as his power grows in the warp. Guilliman never asked that question. He received his orders and left, shattered by the experience but dutiful to the end. The lion might be the Primarch who finally asks it, not because he is wiser than Guilliman, but because the Emperor has been trying to teach him to ask it since the moment he woke up in that forest. Whether the Emperor, fractured across 10,000 years of screaming agony and psychic warfare, can still give a coherent answer is another matter entirely. But in Godblight, the Emperor channeled his power through Guilliman to strike directly at Nurgle's garden, scorching a wound into the realm of a chaos god itself. The Emperor is not powerless. He is not simply a corpse on a throne. He is growing, changing, perhaps ascending into something new. And the Fisher King imagery suggests that the right question asked by the right son might accelerate that process in ways the galaxy is not prepared for. The lion is coming to Terra. He has his sword. He has his father's shield. He has the memory of a wounded king who showed him anger and disappointment, and he has 10,000 years of dreaming behind him that turned a feral monster hunter into something closer to the questing knight this story needs him to be. When he finally kneels before the Golden Throne, the question is not whether the Emperor will speak. The Emperor always speaks. The question is whether the lion will finally know what to ask, and whether the answer, when it comes through the screaming of 10,000 dying psychers and the fractured mind of a god in agony, will be something anyone can survive hearing.